Hey, what's going on YouTube? Haters will say it's AI, but not even Ozempic will get you this jacked without protein. And not protein from processed sources such as protein powder, but proteins from whole foods. I'm lazy, so I like to cook most of my protein in one go. And the most economical and time-consuming way is to cook an entire packet of chicken breast. Here is how I do it.
This is the meal preparation for how I get the bulk of my protein. This is a 5-pound pack for $1.99 per pound. We got this from Wegman. Their supplier is Sanderson Farms, and this is enough protein for Monday through Friday. And we're going to start by slicing our chicken into portions that are manageable. If you care about evenness, you can care about evenness. If you have a lower mortgage rate than I do, then you can go ahead and use organic as well. But you can see I'm trying to be reasonably even. This is how I can get the portion sizes. The portion sizes we're gonna go for are 4 ounces raw, which goes into 3 ounces cooked, because you lose about an ounce of water during the cooking process. And for every meal, we're going to be eating about 6 ounces cooked, which should translate to about 50 grams per protein per meal. And trust me when I say that you're going to need to eat about a pound per day. So Monday through Friday, the $1.99 per pound is actually rather affordable relative to how much vegetables are going for nowadays. Some vegetables are going for up to $5 per pound, but I'm going to slice the rest of this chicken later. But you see how I'm going to start this just into the mixing bowl. Around now is when I would oil and season. I'm not going to do as much oil as I would use for the entire 5 pounds of chicken. I used to actually measure out, okay, that's quite a bit. I used to actually measure out how much oil that I use, but I'm experienced enough that I usually just YOLO it. And then seasoning as well. Season according to taste, of course. Try not to get ones with the primary ingredient as brown sugar. This one, the primary ingredient, we got garlic and spices, and of course this one's nothing fancy. This one's just from regular grocery store brand. It's Grill Mates. I like the Louisiana rub. It reminds me of when we were in New Orleans. But yeah, you're going to eventually fill up this mixing bowl with all of the chicken breast. Sometimes your chicken has quite a lot of fat to trim, but we're fortunate that this chicken batch actually came out pretty lean, so we don't actually have that much fat to trim. My brother, who happens to be the cameraman in this video, asked a very good question. Will portioning too small actually affect the cooking quality? Will it be too dry when it actually comes out? As you'll see later, my temperature and time setting actually comes from years of trial and error to figure out the doneness that I like my chicken to be. And you'll adjust according to your preferences as well. And even then, like when the chicken, the cook timer beeps saying that the chicken is done, sometimes if I don't think the exterior color is crisp enough, it's not darkened enough, I'll just let it sit and simmer for a little bit. But of course, there is definitely a lot of room to adjust for preference. And you know, I am just completely YOLOing with the seasoning. This looks like a lot, right? But remember, this is 5 pounds of chicken, and not all of the seasoning will get into it. Like, sodium intake will affect your build quality, but only really in a subtle amount. And there goes my 1-year-old in the background. The sodium intake will affect your build, but you know, like when you're just starting out, it's really more about fine-tuning in the beginning. So don't agonize too much about sodium as long as you're not eating restaurants all the time. Again, in your first few bakes, you may want to measure out exactly with a measuring spoon how much seasoning you're using so you can replicate your preferred taste for your next few cooks. But it really does come down to trial and error. I won't be able to tell you what seasoning and to what amount you'll want. With everything having been completely mixed in the mixing bowl, the seasoning, the chicken, if you really want to add some garnish like thyme or parsley, that's fine as well. Now it's time to spread it onto our cooking surface, and that will be these cooking pans with aluminum foil. Make sure there's plenty of spacing in between each of the chicken portions. And it's kind of okay that the chicken isn't evenly cut, because it's easier that way, my experience, to mix and match the chicken portions for the correct meal prep portions that you want. Remember, we're going for about 6 cooked ounces per meal, and individuals will need to adjust based upon caloric needs and training level. All right, all of our chicken, all of our hard work, we cover 2 whole trays. All of our hard work. Okay, ready to go into the oven. We couldn't space our chicken as much as we wanted, but hopefully the outcome will be just as good. That's what it usually looks like when I cook 5 pounds of chicken. And then 410 degrees for 35 minutes. And that's the temperature and time, using years worth of trial and error, I feel makes the most tasty chicken per my taste preference. Chicken is all done, and it came out perfectly. The perfect color that I like. I don't like it completely browned over, just a little bit of crispness around the edges. And again, if you find, even though the timer has stopped, the chicken is not done enough to your liking, you can just turn off the oven and then close the oven door. But some will like their chicken to be not nearly as done. And again, it's practice, and this is just the result of years of trial and error to get this temperature and time combo relative to these chicken portion sizes. And of course, they're not all even, which makes it a little bit easier for portioning, which I'm going to demonstrate right now. I have cleaned the surface of this food scale. I'm not that much of a Neanderthal, but this is just an example of how large our portion sizes are going to be. And like I mentioned, we are going to be going for 3 ounces of cooked chicken per portion size and 6 ounces of cooked chicken per meal. And this is what it's going to look like, 5 1/4. So you can go over here and find one of the smaller portions to balance it out. You see, this is one of the advantages of having uneven portion sizes. Okay, so 5 7/8. So that's almost 6 ounces of chicken, almost 50 grams of protein per meal. Then we're going to go ahead and put it into our meal prep container, this glass Tupperware. It may be one of the better inventions since the printing press. If that isn't enough hyperbole for you in this video, go ahead and wipe off your food scale. If I had teared it with a piece of parchment paper, that really wouldn't be necessary. We're going to be pairing our almost 6 ounces of chicken with one of my favorite carbs, which is Japanese sweet potato. It's 9 3/8 ounces. So we're a little bit heavy on the carb side for our macros, but you may need more carbs relative to your activity level and your goals. Everybody's going to be a little bit different in their macronutrient intake, and we're going to pair it with half of an avocado. And this one's way too hard to slice into, but this is going to be one of the perfect macronutrient profile meals that you could prepare. And of course, I don't expect everybody to do exactly what I do. I don't expect everybody to follow this step by step, but this is an example of one of the meals that I can prepare for myself to meet my macronutrient goals for my fitness goals. Once the chicken is reasonably cooled, you can store it in whatever method that you want. I happen to use Ziploc bags and freeze and thaw as needed, but please only freeze and thaw cooked meat, because freezing and thawing uncooked meat will just degrade it and make it less nutritious by doing so. But chicken isn't the only source of protein that I have. Obviously, I also do eat steak on occasion, but chicken happens to be a lot more affordable than however much tenderloin goes for. I also eat some egg whites, but those aren't nearly as filling as chicken. But anyways, guys, I don't expect you to do exactly what I do. This is an example of what I do, and I hope I've given you guys some pretty good ideas.
If you've made it this far into the video, thanks for watching. You have a much longer attention span than I do. So let's make a quick conclusion. Why don't we cook the whole chicken breast and then portion as needed? Because the whole chicken breast takes more marination time to thoroughly flavor it. And also you take much more heat and time in the oven to cook towards the center, which is even less even of a cook than slicing the chicken and then cooking. But regardless, anything that is air quotes healthy and or conducive to gains in the gym is going to be inversely proportional to taste. So it's going to take you a while to get used to the relatively flavorless chicken. Also, Japanese sweet potato doesn't refrigerate very well. You have about 48 hours to eat it before it gets soggy stored in the refrigerator. That's the good thing about chicken though, is that you can pair it with almost any carb source. So I have a video coming up about a brown rice quinoa mix that I use to pair with my chicken. You can also, if you're ultimate levels of lazy, pair your chicken with wheat bread. We do want to avoid bread though, because bread is technically a processed food because it's processed grains. We want to be eating as many whole foods as we can. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching. There's going to be much more fitness and diet content on my channel.